USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And this half hour being brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury. The beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, lots and lots of snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. And now ready to drink cocktails. Memorial Day weekend's coming up. High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal. And the Pickle Bar, led by the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Neal Coolong in a few minutes. And, in fact, Neal Coolong here now. Sir, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Now, a few minutes. All the minutes, whenever you want me, I'm here. And as always, I am grateful to be here.
I'm grateful to have you here, my friend. I hope you know that. I want to get to start with Trey Hendrickson. It's when you see a guy that led the league with 17 and a half sacks on a defense that was very much up and down last year, that has a great quarterback and two great wideouts and a pretty good running back. What's going on with him? And is this the Brown family being the Brown family economically?
I think you got a couple things at work here. First off, when you have kind of a shift in the market, the way that your edge rushers in the NFL did, particularly those in the AFC North. Myles Garrett went public, went, whole diatribe about wanting to win, then got a raise to stay in Cleveland, a team that might actually have a worse quarterback position than the Pittsburgh Steelers do, which says quite a bit about a team's likelihood of winning anytime in the next 3 years. He gets, $40 million APY guaranteed in a new deal, and that's not to say he's not worth it. He went scorched earth. He decided to go public with all of this. TJ Watt is understandably going to monitor that situation with great interest. Now, he didn't exactly, napalm the area or anything, but he puts out what probably was a subtle reminder to the Steelers that, he's got 1 year left on his deal. If you're not going to give him that kind of money, he's not going to be around. And I'm guessing that they had that conversation. And the Steelers at this point are not interested in giving Watt that much money because he signed a contract, and the Steelers typically, they honor their side of the contract. They kind of expect the player to honor theirs. So Hendrickson, I think, does a little bit of both. He's trying to play nice. He does what he is supposed to do. They say we'll talk after the draft, which means we're looking to draft a guy probably to replace you at some point, and they did. He wants to talk now because according to him, they said they were going to talk. That isn't happening according to Hendricks. So I would think that this is kind of the time of the year where every team is going to evaluate what they have. I think they're all done with their rookie mini camps. They've got their team mini camps coming by the end of the month. And with that, they'll have a good sense of what their roster is going to look like heading into camp. That is probably the time where you would see Trey Hendricks traded. if they were going to trade him. Now, they've got him on a pretty nice deal. They spent a bunch of cash on T. Higgins this offseason and already are spending a bunch on Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. It's a good team. It's a good roster. They probably should be a 10, 11, 12 win team if everything, kind of goes the way it's supposed to early in the season and then throughout the season, which has not been the case for the Bengals the last couple of years. Hendrickson has been a big part of that, quiet, but a very big part of it. And he would have, I think, a ton of residual interest on the market should he be made available. But you're also sitting on the doorstep of Micah Parsons getting a deal that I can't imagine is going to be south of Myles Garrett. I would imagine it at least be at that level. When you get up that high, you're really kind of saying, look, my guy is in the elite of the elite. He should be paid this much, and then add in a few more bucks because, well, you need to pay him. His contract, his next one is going to be very lucrative. I would think the Bengals would have a tough time wanting to pay that much that quickly. And while Hendrickson is a good player, every team goes through this. You can't keep everybody. You're not. Let me rephrase that. You're not going to keep everybody. If they can't get through the year and tag him, which doesn't seem like Hendrickson would really be interested in that, he's going to want some type of resolution on this as quickly as possible. So he's probably doing something, talking about it, trying to say, look, we're going to do this. I'm not sure what it means for me moving forward, but I think you're probably looking at a DJ Watt situation where he goes to training camp and just doesn't do it. Walk around, drinks Gatorade, talks to players, not participating in the drills. Or he could take the really bold move and not show up at all. Often upwards of $1 million, $1.5 million, and really send the message that he's not doing anything. They give him a deal. I don't think they're going to give him a deal. Honestly, I think this is going to go on for quite a bit longer. But you're looking at a market overall, an edge rusher in the NFL that's about to explode. So Hendrickson obviously wants to. I think there are teams that would pay him on a long-term deal, but the Bengals made their choice. They went with T. Higgins to go along with Chase and Burrow. I can see why they would want to do that for sure. But considering how much money Hendrickson is worth, I don't think the Bengals would probably be the most responsible in giving him a market-level deal, not at the level somebody else could give him. So their highest and best offer, I can't imagine it's what Hendrickson wants. And he's going to have to decide whether he wants to get out there and play or force a trade by not doing anything.
Yeah, Trey Hendrickson is going into the last year of his deal with Cincinnati. He's scheduled to make $15.8 million. He says, and he told Pat McAfee on the Pat McAfee show, that he's not seeking to become the highest paid defensive end or first in line to get a deal. He just wants to get a deal. That's great for him. Meanwhile, you referenced they drafted somebody. Well, they drafted Shamar Stewart, 17th overall. Guess who didn't show up at rookie minicamp because he doesn't have a deal?
Not sure what the Bengals are doing, but it's not signing defensive ends to contracts this week, apparally.
Yeah, so far so good.
Of the fact that Stewart, I mean, you've seen Stewart play. There's having all the, and then they're on the football field together, which I'm not sure is quite done yet. But you're looking at a Julius Peppers level size athlete guy. I don't know how good he is at football just yet. A dude
right.
with his size and his measure does not get 17 overall. He's a top 5 pick. So the Bengals did not. There's no way they drafted Stewart thinking he was going to contribute anywhere close to Hendrick's level this year. So you have to think they'd be able to work something out with Hendrickson. If that's a short-term deal that gives him some money up front, that makes it a little bit easier to trade him next year and kind of push your chips into the table for this year, I could see both sides being open to that, as long as from Hendrickson's case, if he can get some money now and be able to hit a market that's going to be a lot more lucrative for him, which is really the Parsons' contract era of defensive end, in the NFL, he has the ability to capitalize on that to strike it rich. I understand. The one thing they all want to say is, I'm not looking to be the highest paid player in the game. They prefer, though, to be in the top 5, I'm sure. The next guy that's had a lot of success, who's due for a contract, tends to land in that spot. So him, $15 million is a pretty good deal for the Bengals, and I would imagine the Bengals want to hang on to that. It's really up to Hendrickson at this point. If he's going to, they're going to have to make a move to do something, and in the meantime, they're going to have to play kind of this back and forth in the media. Nothing else to do but talk about this and write about it. So the Bengals are an organization that seems to be okay with that. They're used to it. It happens fairly often.
Yeah, which now gets us to Derek Carr. Derek Carr, look, he's had a series of injuries in his career, and he decides to retire. I've always looked at him as one of those guys who's, if you're a competent NFL quarterback, you're going to make a lot of money. It doesn't mean you have to be great, but if you're competent, people want you. Derek Carr, to me, was the definition of a competent quarterback, but not a great quarterback.
Competent is description. That was like, he that intensity coming into the league, maybe just a little bit in terms of his overall touch, see the ability to stay in the NFL for a while. He had such a kind of a roller coaster career. Good. And I remember the big thing at that was the pick guaranteed. After that, that's how the whole fell to maybe he went 10 overall. But Deshaun Watson is a really good prospect. Not good at that because but because they want that option year. Carr was who fell. He was a second-round draft pick, and that a guy. It had a 5-year option. The team could have saved a bunch of money because what happened was give the extension earlier than they would have drafted for paid him a bunch of money up front, and then he fell off a cliff next year. And I don't know if he ever really rebounded, or I don't think he was bad overall, as you put it. He wasn't going to be a top echelon guy. Quarterback, you see how tough it is. Fine quarterback in the NFL. I think our contract really speaks to that. He got paid that one time by the Raiders and bounced around a bit. And with that, he got paid close to the top 10 level money, if not inside of that, in straight season. Yeah,
right.
Level. Hello. How am I doing now?
You
I
sound
moved spots.
You sound brilliant.
All right.
The Eagles are going to play the Cowboys in the opening game of the season, so we know that part of the schedule, which is essentially preseason game 1. So, at least to me, it is. The month of September is just the preseason. It doesn't really, just be at least 500. You're in good shape. What do you think the schedule makers look for when they do these things for TV? I mean, the Eagles are obvious. But what are they looking for?
I think in the Eagles' case, I would think the networks would love to have a team like the Eagles host that opening game every year, mostly because it's hard not to find some type of heat with a lot of matchups that are going to be on the Eagles' schedule. They ran a train through their playoff opponents, oddly, except for the Los Angeles Rams, which I'm not even sure if they're on their schedule or not, but I would have enjoyed that. I think that would have been fun. But when you're talking the Cowboys, Packers, Steelers, that's who you want to get in prime time most of the time. Now, in this case, fortunately for the Steelers, they don't play the Eagles, so they don't have to suffer the indignity of that game. Dallas is an up-and-coming team. Just added a very intriguing piece with a new coach on top of it. I think Dallas was the obvious pick. That's who it was going to be. They tend to not want it to be a division game, but in this case, I think it's just too good to put the Cowboys against the Eagles. And that's a good one to drive all off season. You know, the network's going to want to put some money into that, market it a bit, considering the hype that would surround a game like that. That's the kind of stuff they're looking for. Really, simply put, is just heat. Sometimes that's the players. Sometimes it's history. Sometimes it's kind of a revenge setting from the previous season, or from generally what's happened between those teams. And on top of it, though, the main thing really is just the draw. The Cowboys are a known draw. The defending champs are going to be a known draw anyway. So it's both of those games this season, maybe even three of them, are going to be marquee matchups. And I looked at the schedule. I kind of thought, if they go in the division, it'll be Dallas. If they don't, it'll just be kind of more like Dallas is crying about it. They don't want to have to play in a game in which the defending champ has a pretty high win percentage since they started doing this. Gosh, it's 20 years now, something like that. Not everyone, but I would venture a guess that the defending champs won 15 or 20, something like that. So pretty heavily slanted in their favor. Dallas wouldn't want to have to take that in week one. But exactly to your point, which is what I've really been telling people, do we even care about these week one games anymore? Does this even matter? I mean, you see the largest disparity of everything the first 2-3 weeks of the season nowadays. I'm not sure if it's the subtraction of the preseason game, or if the idea that there's one less preseason game, one more regular season game, is adding to the idea that this doesn't matter as much as it used to. So this is kind of the time of the year we're sort of going to ease into it. We're not going all out in these games. I don't think the quality of play has been very good, and I don't define quality of play as the final score either. You see the crispness, you see the execution on both sides of the ball in all three phases for teams, and it's pretty bad in weeks 1 and 2 now. It didn't used to be that way as much. I mean, week 1 you got some rust worked out, but week 2 the champions are the good teams are typically playing well. I don't know if we saw that the last season or two. So I'm curious to see what product they're going to put out there now with another generation coming in. The idea that seasons are 17 weeks long now, so they got to pace themselves a little bit more. And at the same time, they want to go to 18, which logically is going to make September almost irrelevant. It's not going to matter at all. Right. We've still got 14 games after this. So we're getting more into the idea that football is going to matter more, even more than it did when the temperature drops, which conversely means it doesn't really matter much in the late summer months into the fall. So we'll see what shapes out. I know that both of those teams have very good rosters. Philadelphia probably only got better, and that was a team that I don't think got enough credit for as well as they played in the postseason last season. And I would imagine they'll be favorites to run it back again. And if they're playing at that same level, they're going to be a tough team to beat. I'm not sure who does it.
Yeah, what's interesting is they're going to put out this TV schedule. The last 2 years, projected Aaron Rodgers games were, I think you're allowed 6 each year, and I think 11 of the 12 were put into prime time. Well, he's not a part of the schedule at this hour. That's why I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do or don't do with it.
A lot of different ways I could go with it. We saw a lot more of the Jets than we wanted to the last 2 years. You feel because of that, you feel bad for Robert Saleh, who really didn't get a fair shake at things in New York, I don't think. But I for the sake of the Steelers, I don't know how many primetime games they're going to get or they're going to want to have, because I don't know how much they have with or without Rodgers. I'm not even sure if they're better or worse. Probably a better team overall with him, but I don't think there are many quarterbacks who could join the roster tomorrow and not make them a little bit better. That doesn't say much for Aaron Rodgers, but at the same time, as we've said, I think we saw Rodgers' plan a bit better down the stretch last season, certainly than how he started. But he also skipped all of minicamp, didn't show up with his teammates, and didn't participate in organized stuff really until late in the process. And it seems like at the very least, if he's going to play, I'll bet that's probably what he's going to do this year. He's just not going to sign until he gets to skip minicamp. So
right.
He's going to go into it cold again, and I'm not sure how much I like that, considering he's a year older than the last time he did it, and he started off worse than the rest of the NFL did. In terms of we're going to ease into this slowly. It took him 5-6 weeks to really kind of seem like he had an idea of what was going on. I would imagine he's going to do the same thing. So if the schedulers, for some reason, know that he's going to be on the Steelers, you really hope they didn't put 3 of their first 5 games on prime time, because it's going to be bad for everybody involved except for the Steelers' opponent.
Exactly. Neal, thanks so much. Appreciate the adjustments as well, my friend.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection, imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you and thank you for your years of patronage.